Jason, so you were in the class this morning. Well, it seems like ages ago.
It does, yeah. It's busy days.
And as usual, I didn't have any idea what we were going to write a song about, and we had a little chat with Megan about, or I had a little chat with Megan about what to write the song about. And we landed on the Apollo moon mission.
Landed on the moon.
Landed on the moon. And the kids knew a surprising amount about that.
They did, and I found that interesting because we actually haven't studied the moon for several weeks. We pushed on to other science topics. So it was great to see them pull out all that learning that they had that is really just brought to the front of their attention and kind of remembering all that.
Yeah. And do you find... I mean, are there other ways you can motivate them? Do you ever do that? Do you ever kind of think back, okay, we did this 6 weeks ago, let's see how much they remember, or don't you ever have time to do that?
I try to incorporate prior learning into a lot of lessons whenever we can. You know, if we're doing math and learning about flags, you reckon that back to, you know, social studies lessons when we're talking about people visiting other countries.
Yeah.
You know, flags they might have seen there, and then how we would use that in that regard.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to bring out those prior learnings, you know, across the different studies of different subjects.
Yeah. And are you usually impressed with how much they remember, or are you a bit disappointed? Do you think, oh, I would have thought they'd remember?
Usually land on the impressed side.
You do? Excellent.
Bright bunch of students that are always willing to share their information and talk about subjects.
That's so important, the fact that each student doesn't necessarily have to remember everything, but they're doing a shared effort.
There's just too much much of a volume of material to be covered and remembered by everyone. So it's a group effort, for sure.
Now, when we were doing the gathering the information part of the class, we got a lot of information. They knew a lot of information about the Apollo moon program. And at first I was thinking, well, we're going to do something that packs loads of information in and lets them remember stuff, you know, what year it happened and all that sort of stuff. But in fact, as we worked on it, it became something much more sort of poetic.
Poetic and more personal, I think.
Yes.
When you're taking one person's perspective and how he would have seen the moon landing, having not been to the moon, just been around it, and kind of taking his perspective. Actually, I thought it turned out kind of sad in a way.
Yes.
And, you know, as this one person is orbiting the moon and saving and worrying about his friends and being an integral part, but really when it comes down to the historic aspects of it, he becomes like almost the forgotten element in this historic moment.
Which is why I was so pleased when Megan spontaneously came up with the phrase that I immediately thought that's got to be the title, Unsung Hero, because that's exactly what it is, but it captures that slightly sad sort of element, poignant. And the melody came out quite poignant as well. I mean, I didn't say it's got to be any particular style, but just the way when
the students started singing, it just kind of came naturally to them. Especially when it came to the whole checking dials, pushing buttons, turning knobs. I just found that I could picture him in his capsule, just kind of like doing
all the
his
routine
thing, and it's
stuff,
like the song going over and over again. So.
So it's very touching, very moving, and it's quite a strange situation in the way to be old enough to remember all that as an event. You know, the most exciting event of my childhood was watching the moon landing. But for you and for the kids, it's too long ago. You don't have any memory of it.
And I think the big events in our life are mostly tragic events at this point. Nothing really to really marvel at and to kind of take great pride and joy in. It's all the negative aspects of society.
And it's quite interesting for me to think about how people who didn't live through that view the moon landings, where it is kind of, it has that distance of a historical.
It's almost now you'd have to relate it to, you know, the Mars rover going to Mars and having the pictures sent back from that, from things that we've never seen before in such high resolution.
Which is exciting in itself, but there is something about people going to that place.
Absolutely.
It was just like, you know, when I was a kid, that was miraculous. It was like, it was a dream I had as a little kid. You know, I read about books about moon landings, but that wasn't going to happen. And suddenly, it was happening for real. You know, well, unless it was fake, of course. But I don't think it was.
We won't go there.
But so it's interesting to try and get that perspective. You know, for kids for whom it's virtually ancient history. You know, it's
ancient history.
Ancient, really ancient. It's fairly ancient for you.
4 years.
Anyway, it was a really fun session, and thank you, Megan, who's hiding behind the camera.
You're welcome.
Really.